All right. Welcome to another episode of Broiler Breeder Management and Nutrition. In this episode, I'm going to specifically talk about flock uniformity in broiler breeders, how we can measure the flock uniformity, how we can increase the flock uniformity, and really why do we need to have a high body weight uniformity in broiler breeders. Yesterday, I talked about broiler breeder growth management, and it was through a live video, and some of my subscribers joined me in that live streaming, and I really appreciate their time and their willingness and interest to join our conversation about broiler breeder growth management. Just for some of my subscribers who missed that live video, I'm going to send the link for that video up here, so you can just have a look and see how we are answering the attendees' questions, how the learning circulates among attendees, and at the end of the day, really, we are learning from each other, and it's a really fruitful discussion. And I'll be continuing to do live videos so we can interact better with each other, and we can be accessible for each other in our poultry science community. It's our final goal. So let's talk a little bit about flock uniformity in broiler breeders. So what is flock uniformity? So flock uniformity actually is a key performance indicator that producers must monitor carefully. So it is a performance indicator. It means that when you are feeding your pullets, especially for pullets, you need to keep them in a similar body weight. Try to go on the target body weight and try to have most of your birds close together in terms of body weight. That's our final goal. Why is it important? So one of the reasons is if you don't have a uniform flock, there will be competition for feed. So bigger birds, will eat the feed quickly, and especially you are applying feed restriction on them, right? You are applying feed restriction. It means that the feed is not available ad libitum. It is restricted, and for that restricted amount of the feed, bigger birds, are eager to eat that before small birds can have access to the feed. And by that, bigger birds will grow faster, and the smaller birds will remain smaller. So that's the problem. And at the end of the day, you will see their nutrient requirements are different. For example, their nutrient requirements in terms of maintenance requirement, growth requirements, and after coming to production, their egg production requirements will be different. So that's why it's really important to keep our birds in a certain range of body weight. The second thing is if you have a uniform flock, so the thresholds for body weight, body composition, and age in order to reach sexual maturity and start laying will be the same for all of your birds. It means that your birds' body composition will be similar to each other, their body fat especially, which is really important to initiate sexual maturity, body protein content, which is really important to support the egg production up to peak production. So these body composition will be similar, and also body conformation. It means that the frame of the body. And let's say if you have a short bird versus a tall and slender bird, so your flock is not really uniform. So that's why we need to measure the uniformity. In my live video that I told you, and I'm going to send the link, you can watch that video. I talked specifically how to measure body composition like body fat, and also how to measure body conformation in that live video. If you are interested, you can just have a look in that video. So the other thing is onset of maturity timing. It means that if age at first egg is similar for all of your birds, so you are going to have a successful management and productive flock. Because if they come to lay in different ages, so you will have problem with photostimulation, because when you are going to photostimulate the birds, you know, I mean, when we are talking about photostimulation, it means that increasing the lighting hours. So if your some of your birds are lighter, they are not ready to take that photostimulation, they will show photorefractoriness. It means that they will be resistant to lighting programs, and maybe they won't come into lay. And or if they come, they will have a really poor performance. So that's why we need to have a uniform flock to bring them to lay at the same age, at the same time. And of course, in addition to, you know, photostimulation, body composition is also important. If, let's say, your birds don't have enough body reserves, especially in terms of fat, so it's a problem, and they may not initiate the egg production. So the other thing is maintenance requirement. As I talked about that, if our birds are in different body weights, so their maintenance requirements will be different. And at the end of the day, you will have low peak production for the flocks that they are not uniform in terms of body weight, and the persistency of lay will be poor. It means that after peak production, they will lose egg production suddenly. So in this curve, in this picture, you can see several curves. So the black one that you can see here, this black one is the egg production curve. So you can see they are starting their egg production, and every week they are going to increase egg production, and they are reaching a peak production. After that, they are going to reduce the rate of egg production. So the the slope of that curve after peak production is persistency of lay. If this slope is steep, in that case, they are going to reduce their egg production quickly, which is not good. So we want them to reduce their egg production slowly. That's why the slope of the curve, egg production curve after peak production should be moderate and shouldn't be really steep. So you can see other curves here. For example, the red one is for male body weight. The blue one here is for female target body weight. And the purple one up here is for hatch rate, percentage of hatch, that you can see after, you know, initiating the egg production. The hatch rate is going to increase up to a certain level, and after that, it may decrease. So it means that if you see, if let's say you are measuring hatchability and you are seeing low hatchability, yeah, for sure, maybe you can control some factors related to mating, related to females, to males, but a decline in hatchability, you can see, is a natural thing. And as the birds get older, the hatchability will decline a little bit. And we can talk about that in another video about the factors that can affect fertility and hatchability. Anyways, I was going to say, if you have a uniform flock, you will have a good persistency of lay after peak production. So how do we measure flock uniformity? We have several methods. The first method is to calculate the percentage of birds within 10% of the body weight mean or average body weight. It means that if you take sample from your birds and you measure their body weight and record their body weight, and then you can calculate to see how many percentage of the birds fall into 10% of the average body weight. Let's say if average body weight is 1 kilogram or 1,000 grams, so 10% of 1,000 grams would be 100 grams. It means that you are going to measure how many percentage of birds fall into 1,000 plus minus 10% of 1,000. It means that 1,000 grams plus minus 100 grams, which gives you 900 grams to 1,100 grams. So you are going to measure how many birds falls into that range, and you can say, okay, my flock uniformity is good or not. The more birds fall into that range, so it shows that your flock is uniform, but the less birds fall into that range, it shows that your flock uniformity, has been compromised. In some methods, instead of 10%, they say 15%. It means that they say percentage of birds within 15% of the body weight mean. But this method that I showed you is more reliable. You need to have 10% of the body weight mean. This is one method. Another method is to use coefficient of variation, or CV. So CV actually is the inverse of uniformity. It means that the lower CV you have, the better. And I'll be talking about that in the next slide. So to measure CV, you need to divide body weight standard deviation by the average body weight and multiply it by 100. So here you can see in statistical terms, we call it sigma divided by nu, or mean, multiplied by 100. So if you are going to calculate the body weight standard deviation manually, I mean without using Excel, and let's say you have a just calculator, and you can just find the standard deviation using this formula. And so you need to calculate the sum of or addition of individual body weight minus mean body weight to the power of 2. You need to subtract, mean body weight from individual body weights and take it to the power of 2, and then add them up, add all the body weights after doing this correction, and then divide it by number of the weighed birds. So let's say if you have weighed, I don't know, 100 birds, so you need to divide it by 100 here. And then take the root of that, and you will have the body weight standard deviation. And then you can, as I showed you here, you can just divide it by mean body weight and multiply it by 100 to get the CV, or coefficient of variation. But if you are using Excel, it's really, simple to just calculate the standard deviation and then mean body weight and CV. I can show you in a minute. So after calculating CV, let's say, as an example, if you got CV of 10%, what does it mean? It means that body weight of birds vary from the average body weight by 10%. For example, if your mean body weight or average body weight is 2 kilograms or 2,000 grams, and the CV is 10%, then standard deviation is 200 grams, right? If you just put 2,000 grams of mean body weight in this formula and 10% of CV here, you can easily find the standard deviation of body weight, which is 200 grams. So it means that if you are familiar with normal distribution curve in statistics, in normal distribution, we say 68% of the population falls into mean plus minus 1 standard deviation. 95% of the population falls into mean plus minus 2 standard deviation, and 99% of the population falls into mean plus minus 3 standard deviation. So based on this, because we just calculated the standard deviation, which is 200, it means that 68%, 68 comes from this normal distribution curve. It's a rule. So 68% of your bird's body weight fall within 1 standard deviation, which is 2,000 mean body weight plus minus 1 standard deviation. What was your standard deviation? 200 grams. It means that 68% of your birds, their body weight range between 118 to 2,200 grams. So then you can convert it to uniformity to see what your uniformity is. And I'll be talking about that in the next slide. So let's just fire up a Excel sheet and just quickly show you how you can calculate, the CV, just in case if you are not familiar with this. So I'm just going to create some random values. Let's say I'm going to create some random variables between 750 all the way to 890 grams. So let's say I'm going to create 50 of them, right? It's just an example. So I have created some random variables. Just imagine these are the body weights we have got from a flock. So because I put random formula here, random variable formula, it's gonna change as I'm pressing enter. So that's why I'm going just to copy them and here paste them as numbers, as values, so they wouldn't change. See, I just copied and pasted them here and the first column changed. So because we were using random variables. So I'm gonna just get rid of that. So forget about that step. It was just to create some random variables. Now, your job is here as a producer. Let's say you have got 50 birds body weight like this, and you are going to calculate what? CV. So first we need to know standard deviation, right? And then we need to know mean body weight, or let's say average body weight. After that, we are going to calculate CV. So it's really simple. For standard deviation, I'm putting equals to write the formula. From here, we are going to choose standard deviation, STDEV, and here you can just, select your data. And after selecting your data, press OK. So it is your standard deviation, right? It is the 40. 40 is your standard deviation. And now I'm going to calculate the average or mean body weight. So I just put equals. From here, from this drop box, I'm going to choose average. Average of, again, these variables. I'm just, selecting these numbers and press OK. So this is my average number. So what was the formula of CV? If you remember, CV was standard deviation. I'm just putting standard deviation as E4 here, divided by mean, and then times by 100. So for these numbers that I have created, CV is 4.9%, which is a really good CV. So I just wanted to show you how you can calculate CV in your flock if you have, the body weight records. One important thing that I just remembered to mention is that if you are going to take sample of birds and weigh them and record the body weight, you need to do that consistently and from the same place and at the same time of the day. Let's say if this week on Friday, let's say, if you are doing in the morning at a certain time, then and at a certain place of your barn, you are taking samples of birds, weighing them, recording the body weight, calculating CV. Next week, you need to do that at the same time of the day and from the same place, because it's really important. If you do that in the other place, the birds usually will be different, because based on animal behavior, the birds want to, hang out around a certain place every time. And they usually do not change their place very much. So that's why we need to pay attention to this. But if you have splitted your birds into different body weight groups, it means that if you are using pens, with different average body weight, it will be easier just to take a sample from a pen and calculate the CV and, calculate the body weight. I talked about that in my previous video. It was part 2 of broiler breeder management and nutrition, how to calculate feed allocation. And you can easily, calculate feed allocation for each body weight groups or each pens. Anyways, let's continue. So this is from Hubbard Technical Bulletins from 2017. It's a relationship between CV and uniformity. So let's say you have calculated CV and you wanna calculate your uniformity. In the previous slide, I said CV of 10%, right? So based on this vertical axis or y-axis shows CV, and this horizontal one shows uniformity percentage. So if your CV is 10%, if you come to this red line, it would be 70%, the cross, the point of cross between 10% and here 70%, that cross on the red line, regression line, it shows that 70% you have uniformity. Or you can just use this formula, this regression formula here. Here is y equals, minus 0.7 whatever x plus 0.2 whatever. So it means that instead of y, you can put CV, and the x that you are going to calculate from here will give you the uniformity of your flock. So here is a table that is related to this regression curve. And as you can see, for example, if you've got CV of 10%, the uniformity is 70%. And again, as I said, CV is the inverse of uniformity. If you have lower CV, you have higher uniformity. You can see here in this table, a CV of 5% means 97% uniformity, which is awesome. Remember, a minimum uniformity should be 68%, but it's a minimum. If you have 68% uniformity, it's not a big success. You need to try to reach higher numbers. But if the uniformity is below 68%, in that case, you are going to have problem with your flock productivity. So, strategies to increase flock uniformity. Let's say if your flock uniformity is low, what you are going to do? So the first thing is to do grading. It means that separating different body weight groups into different pens. We talked about that. The second strategy is to increase feeder space. As you can see in these pictures, it is from Ross Pocket Guide 2019. The upper picture shows, feeder space for females, and the lower one shows for males. And as you can see, because they have enough feeder space, that's why the birds are evenly distributed around the feeders, and nobody is behind. All of them is around the feeder and they are eating. So if you have less space of feeder, you're gonna have problem with uniformity. The next factor is feed line speed. You need to optimize it. It means that, if you have automatic feeder, it means that your feed is going to come through the feeder, automatic feeder, connected to your hopper. And if the speed of feed line is low, it means that the birds that are located close to the beginning of the feed line, they will eat feed as quickly as possible. And as a feed goes through the feed line and, reach the end of the feed line, these poor birds, they won't have any feed to consume. So that's why you need to optimize the feed line speed. It means that you need to increase it a little bit, just to a point that feed can go a little bit quickly, and the birds in the beginning of the feed line, shouldn't be able to consume all the feed, and nothing left for the other birds. It's one of the most important strategies. The other factor is spin feeding or scatter feeding. Again, it's a strategy. So here it's an example. Again, this picture is from Hubbard Technical Bulletin. You can see they have installed a device for it's called spin feeder. So you can see the different parts of the spin feeder here. So in fact, what it does, it holds feed here, and the feed can come onto this disc, and then this disc can turn around and can spin the feed all around the feeder. It means that it's going to spin the feed onto the ground, and birds can have access to the feed, especially those birds that are were not able to consume enough feed from the feeder. It's again one strategy to do that. And one thing that I would like to mention here, it just came to my mind, it's about fertility. Sometimes we are using this scatter feeding to improve fertility as well, because usually in the barn, in the broiler breeder barns, usually there are slatted areas. If you pay attention to my background picture, there is a ground area, which is the middle of the picture, where roosters and hens, are mingling over there. But if you pay attention to the sides, you can see the slatted area, and they are located higher than the ground area. So that's the place for hens to go for laying, because there are nest boxes over there. And, inside the nest boxes, just behind them, there is a belt that can, collect the eggs and take it out of the barn. And so the thing is that usually the hens like to stay on the slatted area, and roosters are on the ground. So to encourage mating, especially during the those hours of the day that hens are on the slatted area, one strategy is to just to the barn and scatter a little bit coarse materials like corn or oyster shell meal on the ground to encourage the hens to come down, on the ground. And that's the place that roosters can take advantage and start mating the hens. And by that, we can increase the fertility. So it's a strategy for those farmers who are complaining about low fertility in their barn. So I think this is enough for today, and I'm going to continue the broiler breeder management and nutrition discussion in the next episode. So by that, have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.